I'm really happy to see everybody show, a bunch of interest and people showed up today. But I will tell you, just like, please, be respectful, allow us to get through this and get our work done is really important. Because at the end of this, what this is about is to take a look into these allegations to see if any criminal wrongdoing was done by any member of the Board of Aldermen. And that's important. I think the city taxpayers and the voters deserve that, along with other elected officials. I think it's really important that we know what transpired, if anything transpired. So I'm asking everybody to really understand that, and understand also that this is a very open process, and we're going to keep it open so that people can see what's going on and get everything, all the information available to them as soon as it happens. You can also get the videos of the meetings on YouTube also. So. And Mr. Chairman, I call the Personnel Administrative Committee to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Rhodey.
Present.
Alderman Bosley.
Present.
Alderman Kennedy.
Here.
Alderman Conway.
Present.
Alderman Ortman.
Present.
Alderwoman Behringer.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderman Villa.
Here.
Alderman Arnowitz.
Here.
Chairman Reed.
Here.
We have 11 present.
Alderman from 23rd, you recognize.
So, contrary to some phone calls, this is not an attack on Alderwoman Megan Green. It's about allegations that were made that, as I'm out and about, people are asking me, and really, to be honest with you, it's somewhat pointed at one of the aldermen that said that they took Coates as a bribe. And what we want to find out, and it seemed important to me anyway, that we get to the truth. If it happened, there's actions that the Board of Aldermen can take. If it hasn't happened, then at least we get it out there that the truth is that nothing happened. I would hope that, however the committee, I'm not on the committee, but however it's heard, I would hope that people come in voluntarily to testify. I think that I would ask, in this case, Alderwoman Green, since she's the one that made most of the allegations, saying that a loved one of hers was threatened or bribed in a sense.
Hey, Joe, hey, we're not getting into a lot of that.
No, I'm just
we
trying
want to
to
talk about
Well,
the importance of looking
well,
at it. Go, please proceed.
So anyway, I think there's a lot out there, and I think that transparency is important. And I think that it should be open to looking at every avenue to see if this is actually something that's taking place. And that's why I brought forth this resolution. I sat on it, I thought about it. It wasn't something I just popped up with overnight, but because it kept continuing. I had gotten a call from that same radio show, asking me pointed questions. So I think it's important now that we, get to the bottom of it. It's either factual or not, and that's why the resolution. And this isn't targeted at anybody. This, for those that have called me and said all kinds of whatever, at the end of this, for those that are worried that this is targeted to get Megan out of office, it's not. It's only there to find the truth out. Nothing's gonna happen to her. We just wanna get to the bottom of this, be very open about it, be very transparent, and get to the bottom of it, if this is factual or not. And I don't think anybody in this room should feel otherwise. Again, this is not a witch hunt, it's not a personal attack. We're not trying to find members to take action against any alderman, we're just trying to get to the facts. So, and hopefully that clears up that this is not a witch hunt, it's basically to find the truth. And then I agree with some of the calls, it's gonna be a lot of he said, she said stuff, but at least we could try to figure it out the best we can.
What will eliminate some of that is the way these hearings pass today will be held. People are going to have to, they're going to testify under oath. Right? They will be compelled to show up by us issuing subpoenas, whether it's a union member whether it's a business owner or whatever, to compel them to show up. And we'll use every tool we have to try to get to the bottom of it and try to make sure that we handle this in a very deliberate fashion. With that, we'll take some questions from committee members. Alderman Rhodey?
No questions at this time.
Alderman Bosley?
No questions at this time.
Alderman Kennedy?
No questions.
Alderman Conway?
No questions.
Alderman Ortman?
Ditto.
Ditto. Alderman Behringer?
So I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
The intent of this piece of legislation is to investigate something that was said, and this body, this committee would be the one asking people to come down here to testify? Is that how I understand?
Well, we're, part of what I think we need to look at today, we can bring it back to this committee, or we can send it to another committee. We can amend this today and send it to, like, rules would be another good fit for it if we want to send it to rules, right? So that's up to us today. So if we want to make that amendment today, and it'll fit very well in either personnel or rules.
And for my part, I'm fine with wherever, I just would like, because again, I'm being approached from people in my neighborhood asking me,
No. I understand that. I'm just saying, I just want to make sure I understand the intent, and that we would need to make an amendment today to move it to another committee?
Yes, if we want to move it to rules, like I can even make an amendment once we have our discussion that the resolution is amended, and then when it goes back out to the full board for vote Friday, it will then be assigned directly to rules. So that's part of what we're doing today. We're essentially, this is just a vehicle to empower the committee, whichever committee we would choose.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Davis?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I do have a statement of concern. We have very specifically two alderpersons who have been in the public with a lot of, what I consider to be a lot of unnecessary public scrutiny based on something that may have been misunderstood. Understanding process and procedure here and how this body operates with other entities and with their communities should be a little bit clearer for some. I really, really, really feel as though you have two persons in the body that currently have a situation that they probably have felt very bad about in the last 6 weeks or so. And what I'd like to see is some clarification. I'd like to see some process and procedures put in place that are clear, because I know the rules like the back of my hand, and it's complicated. This situation is complicated. And so, however we get this satisfied, because resolution may not ever come, because that depends on the individual and how they want to look at it. But hopefully we can find a way to get that to happen. It is sad for our city to have newspapers and TV shows and radio programs and all these other individuals determining who an individual is and how they serve their community. I think their community makes that decision. Either they vote them in or they vote them out, and that's how that should be decided. So hopefully we'll come up with a process and procedure that we can end this for this body, so that the public can look at these two individuals differently and have some better understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Howard?
I agree with what Alderwoman Davis said, and I just would like to know, and I guess defer to Mr. O'Connell, what legal grounds do we have to subpoena people? Or is that a...
It's given by the charter. It's in the revised code of the city of St. Louis, and it's also within the Board of Aldermen's rules.
Okay. I should know that.
No.
Uh,
And the charter gives the board,
So,
The
I
power to
guess
make
the
this
other thing, what
rules.
would the consequences be if somebody doesn't report?
The truth.
I'm sorry, the consequences if someone doesn't what?
Doesn't show?
The board is given the power to issue warrants and to jail people who don't show. They can also fine someone who refuses to appear.
So
There are
that's
probably
the-
other political ramifications that you could pursue.
Okay, I guess what, with that, I would prefer the velvet glove and getting this into some resolution or some agreement or some way that we can move on and take care of the important business of the city. We have lots more things to do with, rather than this.
Yeah, and I hope that, I would hope that everyone would show too. I think that that's important. I think, again, this is about openness and getting to the bottom of this stuff.
And transparency.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's important. Alderman Villa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would assume we would invite people before we subpoena.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, unless, I don't see any reason why people wouldn't voluntarily show up, particularly if they have nothing, they're gonna come and try to help us accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. If any of my questions refer to what happened last Friday, I apologize. I wasn't here, so
Okay.
shut me up if I'm being redundant. Have we, there's no high road we can take in terms of the Alderwoman from the 15th and getting this resolved? And I don't know how you define high road.
I don't know that, I think it's, I think that the allegations are allegations of bribery, which is a felony charge, right? I mean, it's a felony. So, from a couple of the aldermen that were implicated in that, they've been searching for answers and trying to get some resolution to it because they need their names cleared, right? And what we've seen is just a redoubling down of those efforts and those statements. So, then Alderman from the 23rd, in an effort to get all this stuff behind us and to have an open process, figured we should have these hearings. And I think that they're a good idea. I think that the board as a whole needs to get this thing resolved and behind us once and for all. And the only way to do that is to have a very deliberate process and to go through those questions so that we can move on.
What were the findings of the local and federal law enforcement officials?
They said that there weren't any findings, that there wasn't anything. And then the other one from the 15th went back and redoubled down her statements. And so now you have the public at large, probably a lot of people in this room that thinks briberies took place. And it's really important. Here's the thing, if we walk through and after questioning everyone from union officials to whoever was implicated in this, and we find that there's a grain of anything, or if there's possibly bribery had taken place, we need to, as a body, report that to the officials and let that process take place. If it has not taken place and none of that stuff has happened, then we need to go and talk to the people, whoever has made those statements, and work through the process with them so that they understand that, what those implications mean and how those implications can negatively impact not just this board, but the lives of the people that were implicated in that type of statement.
Do you think it's...
Again, it's a felony. That's what we're talking about.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Do you think it's unlikely that we're going to find something that I guess the local is the St. Louis Police Department?
The St. Louis Police Department and the feds, I don't think that they went to question anybody. I think that they spoke to the alderperson from the 15th Ward, and from that determination, they said there's absolutely nothing there because the allegations were so outrageous, right? But the alderperson from the 15th Ward then took that out to the community, and the community at large, again, probably a lot of people here today believe that bribery has taken place, and someone took, engaged in pay to play. And I for one, and would like to see the board as a whole cleared, and hoping that it would have been better if the alderperson from 15th would have come out right away and said, okay, that was a mistake, that wasn't what really happened. But that's not what has happened so far. And it's gained a lot of traction in the social network in the area, and I think it's important to walk this thing back through to really see if there's something. And here's the other thing, what if there is something? What if there is something? I don't think that this board should just take a walk on it. I think if there is something, and if indeed a felony has occurred, I think that information needs to come out, and I think we need to pass that forward.
Yeah, I find this exercise unsavory, like we all do through life. We find situations unsavory, but I don't understand the logic about kicking it over to the Rules Committee. Is there some?
The only reason we would move it over to the Rules Committee is.
Would get me out of the loop.
Get you. No, the only reason we would move it over to the Rules Committee, we can either move it over to the Rules Committee or have someone else in here chair it. And this is just me, and the reason I want someone else to chair the meetings moving forward is because it's too important to have anything in place where someone can point to it and say, the fix was in because of whatever, right? And we would be right back to where we started, right? Over the last couple of days, with the thing that happened on the Bob Romanek show and all of that stuff, and the controversy surrounding around that, I would rather either that, or we could have the chairman of rules is actually the chairman of this, not the chairman, but also sits on this committee. We could have just the chairman of rules chair the hearings moving forward, and we can give her complete control over this committee through its totality, and I'd be happy doing that also. I just want to, at the end of the day, I think it's absolutely critical that there is no gray area moving forward on this thing.
Certainly a number of us looking to fire you. I'm kidding, of course. I know. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions at this time.
Alderman Arnowitz?
I'm actually kind of caught in between here. I think sometimes people say things out of frustration, and maybe that's what the alderwoman did, which I can see. I say a lot of things out of frustration. How serious is this? I haven't seen no names in the paper who she actually accused or anything coming forward. I think her comment was, it never ceased to amaze me that the corruption and bribes that go on at this Board of Aldermen.
So it's the entire board.
Yes. So, I kind of took offense to it because I know it's not me. I'm waiting on my paycheck tomorrow. And I did private message Megan, and I told her, I said, I kind of feel insulted because I feel like you included me in this. And she never responded back, and I just let it drop. I really don't know where this can go to or what can happen. Certainly you can't fire someone. That's up to the constituents of the 15th Ward. I just think it's unfortunate that we just keep this bickering going on instead of working together. And maybe maybe this is a wake-up call for everybody. We need to start working together, and before we start throwing accusations out there, maybe we need to think twice. I actually like Megan. But, that's where I'm at with it. I know the board can have subpoena power and send them out, but it doesn't mean they have to show up, and where's the legality go from there?
They
And,
go to jail for 10 days.
okay. But, and I don't know what rules, what place it belongs in, probably in both. But I think if the St. Louis Police Department and the FBI feels there's nothing there, maybe sometimes we're, building a mountain out of a molehill and just let sleeping dogs lie and start over.
Yeah, and just so you know, like some of the things you stated, after those initial allegations were made, it's kind of my thoughts too. But this thing has continued to grow, and also the other thing is that it's been alleged that a felony has been committed at the board, right? I think that at that point, especially when it wasn't just once, it's been said multiple times, and now it's growing to what we see today, that it's not something that I think we're doing a disservice to the board and a disservice to the taxpayers and the constituency as a whole and the city by not looking into it, right? I think it's, I still think it's, important that we look into it. We call all who are involved. And at the end, let's assume that there is something. Then if there is something, that stuff goes to authority, that person goes to jail or be prosecuted or whatever happens. If there isn't anything, then we could even be looking at how we change our rules or whatever in moving forward in terms of debate or whatever, right? There's a ton of things that can come out of this, but it comes from having these open and honest discussions in a forum where that very civil deliberation and exchange of ideas can happen. So that's why it's committees.
I just want to add, I do not just like Megan. I actually went out and knocked on doors for Megan. But I think
And
this
I
is
asked her to
going,
run for office, so.
and so it's actually just gone up to a level. And I know that, like, in the room, we got a lady holding up a coat, and I assume a kid's coat. I assume that's the accusation that's going on, that somebody's taking coats. But I don't know why you hold a coat.
It's green.
It's a green sweater.
Because so people can have two different ideas.
So anyway, but I see the coat, and I'm assuming, so I'm making an assumption.
Everybody hold down.
So I'm making an assumption that, because people have come to me, and they have said about the coat deal, and of course, that was my assumption on that. And I'm sorry, but, well, it's a sweater, not a coat. And, but anyway, I keep going back, this is not a witch hunt. This is about finding out if there's any truth to these allegations, if there is, and dealing with them. And I don't care who chairs the meeting and who doesn't chair the meeting. As a group, we need to get to the bottom. And if anybody feels that we should, anytime anybody's accused of anything, that we should just set it aside and say, oh, well, don't worry about it, then you can't say you're for transparency. If you're for transparency, this whole thing makes sense. There's ways that if, I'm not gonna go through them, but there's ways of beside recalls, getting rid of an alderman, that can be done amongst the aldermen. That's not my intention on this. I think Megan's good-hearted, but I think that getting to these things, getting to the bottom of this is important it's important to me. I don't know about anybody else. It's important to me because anytime as a group we're being told that this is, that we're somehow condoning this, we need to deal with it, and that's why I came to this. Originally, I wasn't gonna do anything, but it just kept going and going and going. And I kept thinking, well, eventually she'll calm down, and, you know. But it's to the point that if somebody's saying something over and over and over, and we're ignoring it, we as a board are wrong. That means we as a board are condoning bribery. This is about, if it's there, we need to find it. If it's not there, then it's about clearing the good name of the Board of Aldermen. And there's nothing else that is intended in this.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So the next step is deciding how we move forward. And I'm open to, did you have anything else, Alderman Davis, before we?
I guess a couple of things happened as I listened to everybody. And I stated 2 people, but then, and because I don't stay focused on all this nonsense, I'm about my youth and my senior citizens primarily, okay? But it really is the whole board.
It is the whole board.
And so I
Absolutely.
only heard one of the conversations that was on TV about it. So I don't listen to radio, I don't even turn it on in my car. So I don't know everything that's been said. And so now it's the whole board. And I just thought about, I was reading about what happened in Jefferson City last week. And so if you don't understand how negotiations happen even, because I think there was a statement made about another older person who took a bribe about getting something included in a bill. That's not a bribe,
Right.
that's negotiations. That happens all day, every day in every legislative body across the world, okay? That is not a bribe. And so if you choose to work extra hard for your community and/or for the community at large to get an important issue taken care of in a bill, and if that's what it takes to get your vote and you use that opportunity, that is not a bribe, that is negotiation. And so the misunderstanding of that probably needs to be cleared up.
Yeah,
It happens in every legislative body.
Yeah,
They tag on things to bills
Yeah.
to get a vote.
Yeah, a bribe, I think, would fall under the guidelines of doing things to enrich yourself or your family personally, right? It's a personal enrichment. You would if, for example, when Sam was working for minority inclusion in the stadium bill,
Right.
right? He said that his constituency and people throughout his ward and people throughout the city could benefit from that.
Right.
That's important because that's why he was sent here. You think about, in some people's view, what is it? I can't even remember what they're called. They don't even do it anymore, where they add things on to congressional bills. It's,
Amendment?
Amendment?
no, not amendment. I forget that. But they stopped allowing them to add
Earmarks.
earmarks. There you go. There you go. It seems like years ago. I mean, it seems like forever since we've heard that. But earmarks, right? Some people say, okay, earmarks. In some people's view, an earmark would be a bribe, but an earmark is you working to bring things back to your constituency, and that's your job. That's why they elected you to represent them, right? And you should fight for your constituency. And you should not be maligned in public for fighting for your constituency. That's why we have various different wards. Kenny has a different constituency than Joe, who has a different constituency than Bosley and you, and so on and so forth, right? So it's my expectation when we come together that we're going to hear diverse opinions, and from those diverse opinions, we're going to end up with the strongest, best solution or bill or whatever ordinance. And I think the stadium bill went through that process. So. But before we do that, Did you have anything else, Alderman?
No, no.
Okay, all right. Anything else from members of the committee? All right. And Alderman Moore, you came in a little bit late, but we weren't taking any questions.
But I'm
from-
the accused, not
I know, you're the accused, I know, but one of the things, we weren't gonna take any questions from anybody off of the committee. When
I just wanna
you,
make a statement.
can you hold that statement?
I really wouldn't like to.
Because I'd rather not, because otherwise, we're trying to,
I'm a member of the board, so I think that I should be able to speak because I'm the one that all this is about, and using my name has been slandered, and I need to
Okay.
let you know how I feel about
all right,
this.
I'll allow that. Go ahead, Alderman.
This stadium bill, there has been
Hey, could everybody please hold it down?
millions of dollars tossed around. Millions, 14, 15 million dollars. When the police checked my account, I put in my account this year $11,000. I got that from Brown and Krupman for this massive accident that I had that gives me an impediment. It makes me seem a little slow. So maybe people prance on me because they think I'm slow, but I got you set up in my memory bank. I didn't receive a dime from the stadium bill. The problem was that, and I was very adamant about the Rams. I'm glad they're gone. I was very adamant about them losers who didn't want to stay here. I didn't want no part of the stadium bill at all. But when we had the opportunity to finally get some minorities to work, 38% of minorities could go to work, that's what changed my mind and made me decide to vote on the stadium bill. The will of the people had already been taken away in the other committee that they voted on, and I was I signed on as a co-signer on the bill to get the will of the people to vote to have this stadium built. And I think that's where all the mishap came in, is that I was on that bill for the vote, and instead of blaming the people that voted it out, not for the people the people that voted for the people not to vote, and you have to excuse me, I'm a little, because I want to say it all at one time. But the deal is that it was the will of the people was taken away in another committee. And for me to be blamed for taking a bribe because all I wanted to do is get jobs for minorities. I have a ward that's 99.99% African American, 1,700 vacant lots, 1,242 empty buildings. 50 years of disparity is just ringing through that neighborhood. You see my desk, you'll see all those pictures and all those bricks. I fight for the forgotten people in the 4th Ward. And if getting jobs for minorities or anybody in my community is perceived as a bribe, so be it. Call it a bribe, call it what you like. But I don't think that I have enough problems in that ward. 13,000 or 12,000 some people and only 1,000 are voting at any given time, and you go out and put everything but a chicken in the mailbox. Apathy is set in because we have let a subculture get away of young people who have no respect for anything because we have not trained them in the right way. We have not. How do they perceive us and perceive me as a 60-some-year-old man living on Garfield and Newstead on the corner? The vote is counterfeit. We tell them to vote all the time. Vote, 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 vote. Look what we have in that community, third world conditions. It's impoverished, and then we're so polarized. We make this thing out of a racial issue continuously, the North against the South, the DMZ, the Mason-Dixon line is Delmar. We have a problem in this city, and instead of our mayor running around chasing Hillary Clinton, he should be here taking care of his business in his city. Now print that and say that I call the mayor, it's a joke. It doesn't make sense. I am here because I am the accused. I'm the one they said took a bribe. So if they want to investigate, whoever decided to investigate, and whatever anybody has to say, I did it for the sake of minorities trying to get some more work, which it was all a dream. It was never going to happen. never was it gonna happen. I've been in every We Shall Overcome, every ad hoc committee, every SOS for blacks, and it never happens. So I thought at this time it might have been an opportunity for us to get some work, and that's what made me decide to change my perception of what was going on. And it was only for the finance bill, not to build that stadium down there. And here we come back again with some more stuff. If we could find that money, $14–15 million to play with, we could have revived my neighborhood. And that's what's wrong with this city today. They can find money for everything, and I've been begging for 9 years and haven't received a thing in that community. So that's what I'm about the people in the Fourth Ward. I don't care about the ballpark village, the arch ground, the stadium, the downtown, the Rams, the Cardinals, or none of that, because it all goes downtown. But there's another side of St. Louis, and there's a subculture that we have forgotten about that eventually is going to come to a war near you with the trouble that we're having, because we're having a big problem, and they ran out of stuff to do.
I would like to just answer part of that, if I could.
Sharon had her hand up.
I know, but I want to just right off this. First off, everybody thinks that the city of St. Louis and the Board of Aldermen authorized $16 million. The Board of Aldermen and the city of St. Louis didn't spend 10 cents. We didn't even
Right.
have donuts. The Regional Sports Authority, which is a state organization, is the one that did the designs, that drew it, that brought it to us. We did not spend a dime. The people that have called me and said, we could use that $16 million in your case, say, for that neighborhood. We could use that for an aquarium. It's not our money. That's the same group that owns the Rams park thing out in the county. We don't own it. It's a state agency set up by the state. We fund a part of it. The county funds a part of it. The state funds the biggest part of it. We don't, it's a state organization. They didn't come to us and ask us if they could spend the money on design. None of that was, the only thing that was brought to us was a board bill.
Okay,
I just wanna
I
clear
know,
that
but we're
the-
getting, the only reason I allowed this.
I know,
point-
but I wanted to be clear
ju-
that we did not spend a dime on that stadium.
I think you said that. Only reason I allowed Alderman Moore, who doesn't sit on the committee, this point of personal privilege, because he's been through tremendous turmoil across the last 3 months. And you can see that he's been been barraged and harboring all that stuff because of the allegations that have been heaped on him. So that's the
why I'm
only
doing-
reason.
that's why I'm doing this.
I know. I need to explain this. But it's the only reason I allowed him this point of personal privilege. Is not, I'm not here to recognize any of the aldermen that aren't on the committee, because I'm trying to contain
So you're
this.
saying that the rest of us haven't been through anything, because I've been through something too, okay? So I've been through, in this very room, somebody
hold on,
tried to do
would
me.
you-
I want to just ask a
would you-
procedure
would you-
question, that's
would you
all I
give-
wanna do.
you-
You answered something that Tom Villa
Would-
asked, that the reason, and you're just covering it so that it's only one-sided.
No,
Let
I'm
the
not.
other side have something to say, Louis. This is wrong, what you're doing. I'm gonna
Sha-
say it in the
Sharon.
press, I would prefer to say it in this committee.
Sharon, you, Alderman from the first.
That's fine,
you
don't,
got- you-
I'll just put it out.
you
I
just
have some
got-
procedure questions that might help.
I didn't say that. All right. So anyway, the second piece I wanted to talk about, I think we should talk about, yeah, Alderman.
In the one thing, and Alderman, I am sorry that happened to you. And I'm not exactly certain, and there's been other people that, have been victimized by off-the-wall remarks, both by her and other people. And, the one thing is, I know that she personally, came down on you and a couple of other people in the process. But if she made a public apology to you, just wrote it off to, being young or, new, is there any consolation there to you from something like that?
I have an apology here on the phone, but I think that the apology on the phone is not acceptable because she see me. It doesn't have to be public, just me and her. If she apologized to my face, because she haven't, that's what one of the main things is. She called me on the
And then
phone.
also clearing your name publicly, because still people out there, probably some people in this room who have gotten the other side of the story publicly will still think that you and others engaged in bribery if this isn't taken back out to the public and everything's clear.
And the only thing I was asking, you know, the public apology to you, to the board, and explain whatever her misunderstanding of what transpired. Does that comfort you at all, or lessen the burden that she's put on you?
I don't have thin skin. I've been talked about and beat up all my life. So it doesn't matter to me about who apologized and how I feel. You know, it's a shame that we're getting along like this down there on this board, and we have the people's business to take care of. And all this is getting just blown out of proportion. It's getting out of order that we're all scrutinized by others. We're not having a committee, what do we call it? Our meetings.
What do we call it?
Yeah. A session. We're not having session, but look at the people that are here about this fiasco, about this unnecessary
Accusation.
verbiage that was put out. And I think the young lady was stressed out because she was, thought that I should have stepped forward with her. Evidently she must have thought I was on her committee, but I was not. But I think it's blown a little bit too far out of proportion. And I think that we need to get back down to the people's business, or whatever is decided that we should do that and get it out of the way, and not being, we're public figures, but I think this is a bit too much. It's got me bent out of shape, and like I say, I get accused every day of something, get accused of this and that and all the other stuff, so, but I'm working on jobs for people. That's my deal. It's about the people in the Fourth Ward,
Okay.
the forgotten four.
All right, thanks, Sam. You know, back to the resolution at hand. We can choose to amend this, to send it back out to the board, to send it to the Rules and Engrossments Committee. We can choose to, if we keep it in Personnel Committee, we can, I would work with one of the other members, preferably Alderwoman Davis, who is the chairman of Rules, so she would chair the meetings in here. But the important thing is that as we go through this process, that they're handled in such a way that we remove any ideas of anything happening outside of the public eye, right? So it's important that we have open, very organized, very deliberate discussions, and that are thoroughly documented, so that when we report it back out of committee, it's very clear what transpired, right? So those are our options, and I'm open to discussion on that. Alderman?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm not an attorney, but we're a municipal authority. I mean, if we're sending out subpoenas and we want to get a report back from, for example, the FBI or the police department, do they even have to? I mean, my understanding has always been that the FBI, as an example, is very hesitant to even disclose or discuss somebody, an investigation. I mean, has somebody had a conversation?
Yes, and the way that would happen is that the chief has agreed. The chief will show up and testify, number one. The chief has a unit that's co-located with the FBI. So the chief can report on any of those things, right? I doubt if they will report on any open investigation, right? But they will tell you what transpired up to that point. So if they have any open investigations since then, that it would, I don't know how they would handle that, but the chief will report back to us what transpired up to that point. When he called the feds, when I contacted him, what the feds told him, what his conversations were between the various different Alder people and the information they collected. He will provide us with all of that. He sent a letter out when that happened to outline some of those things, but he's very happy to show up and to walk through all of their evidence and things that they've collected on their side also. So we would not have to compel the feds. The St. Louis Police Department will be providing that information.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, does it get us anywhere or behoove us to permit the Alderwoman from the 15th to give us her version of what she's saying? But, I mean, rather than, you mentioned a radio personality, and my car didn't even have a radio.
Yeah, that's completely different. Forget about that.
My car has no
Probably
radio,
should-
but,
probably
so I
should-
don't know that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, certainly, I don't know if it's half-truth, innuendo, rumor, and I just don't, I mean, it's hard for me to clarify exactly what transpired, and obviously, I assume some of this took place before the Ways and Means Committee, is that?
We have no idea. That's part of what we would do.
You know, I didn't have any testimony or comments along those lines in response to me. You know, from what I've read, that I haven't put a lot of interest in it, except on behalf of Alderman Moore, is that whatever had transpired that she thought was allegations of bribery had happened sometime before. I don't think it happened, and it's hard to tell from her statement during our committee hearings. I just don't know. I mean, whatever's in the press, the public record is the public record. And I think it's unclear as to the timing of that. I think there was a vote, and then her allegations came out after the vote.
I'm just, Mr. Chairman, I'm not, comfortable voting on Resolution 197 until, I mean, we are, to the Alderman from the 23rd's point, we're all getting painted with a rather broad brush. I don't think my neighbors like me because I drive a black car. I don't give that a great deal of thought. But I'm in government, so I'm tainted somehow or another. Well, you've got a number of them, Alderman. Don't pick on me. Don't pick on me. But it would just seem to me that if we permitted the Alderwoman from the 15th to give us her version and to, I guess, repeat the allegations, then it would be a lot easier for me to deal with a resolution of this nature.
That's part of why we're doing the resolutions, to compel them to come to talk. One of the things we could do, because what the resolution does, the resolution empowers the committee to begin to talk to the various different individuals in an open forum, right? Whether that's, and I think that we start with the Alderwoman from the 15th, right? But if the Alderwoman from the 15th shows up and says, well, the carpenters or the plumbers and pipe fitters or whatever offered a bribe to
Family members.
my family member, and I think what she meant by that is the guy Ben Murray, right? Then we would bring Ben Murray in and have her and talk with Ben Murray, and Ben Murray is I've already spoken to Ben Murray, and he is prepared and ready to show up and tell his part of it, right? And then we would talk to the organized labor body and so on and so forth. But or if she says that I saw Sam Moore take a bribe or whatever, then we're going to talk to Sam Moore. This is going to take a couple weeks to walk through, but at the end, we'll have sufficient information to understand exactly what happened. Anything short of that, we're still in this gray area where the average person out there looks at the board and said there's bribery or something clandestine that has happened, with no finality to it, right? The other thing that we could do is if we want to start by, if we decide to hold this today and start by bringing the Alderman from the 15th in and seeing if she will, seeing what comes out of that, what comes out of that. And if we end up with a situation where she says, yes, people were bribed, then I think we then move forward from there too. We can choose to move that way also.
Have we asked her to voluntarily come in and discuss it?
No, this is our first meeting. This is our first meeting.
But in the absence of a resolution, we could do that.
That's correct.
Yes.
And I appreciate Alderman Villa's approach here, that might be something
Yeah.
that we could just come back next week and invite the Alderwoman from the 15th Ward.
I'm good with either way. It doesn't matter. At the end of it, what's important, I think, is that we end up getting to a resolution, and we may get to that resolution that everybody needs through that first conversation. If we find through that first conversation that there's no way to get to that resolution, I think that we need to, dive further into it. So I'm good. I'm good with either way.
I'm sorry.
Well, Alderman Davis.
I'm just a little confused over, I'm always, I've been down here a long time, and procedurally, I always get confused. So we have a resolution here that basically says we want to authorize a committee, and for right now, that committee is the Personnel and Administration Committee to do an investigation.
Yes.
It sounds like if we start calling witnesses before us, we're doing an investigation before the resolution has been approved.
Yeah,
Is that-
we would have to, the resolution expresses the will of the entire body, right? That's why, but the committee itself could have could hold a hearing with one of its members. And the dicey thing is what direction that would take during the course of those discussions. Certainly, the cleanest way is to pass the resolution out, adopt the resolution, have it go to the full board, have it passed, and then have discussions directly after that, because then we'll have them organized, as the Alderman from the 19th was talking about, and have a documented process for moving forward. And I think that, given the kind of situation we're dealing with, where you have the public, very engaged with it, and the public, and there's an air of somebody being, mistreated or whatever. I think we need to be very careful about how we move forward. Alderman from 19.
Mr. Chairman, what has come to my mind now is that it's very important that we stay very legal in this process. I've heard a number of things that have concerned me. One thing that I do know is that one of our rules allows us to bring before a type of mediation committee to work towards a goal to resolve an issue. But I think that particular committee might be too weak to handle this problem that we have here. And so I would like to, whatever you decide to do with this resolution, I'm okay with that. But what I'd like to put on the table is that our law clerk consults with our city attorneys to determine the next steps. Because at the end of this process, there's going to be a next step.
Oh, absolutely.
And we need to know what that is and how we move forward. And as you know, I have chaired a number of large governmental bodies over the years. And I've had to sanction people so they did not have the authority to speak or take part of any actions before, even though they were an elected person. I've had to do a number of things, but my legal counsel normally took the lead for me, because you have to make sure that you don't make mistakes. And one of the processes that we have to be very careful with, because I continue to hear more and more, I must be totally out of the loop. Because a lot of the things I just heard here, I didn't know all these allegations had taken place. And I'm hearing too much.
Yeah.
I'm hearing much too much. So I've got to be absolutely sure in how we move forward. I'm willing to do anything as a chairperson of rules, because I have to follow whatever is set before me. But I'm really, really concerned about the legality of this at this point and how we move to the next step. It's some serious stuff going on. It's much more serious than I realized. And even just this past weekend, that one TV show, I don't know if our alderperson was on there live or if it was a repeat. But it put it all fresh again out into the community.
Oh, yeah, because people,
And I was sitting there suffering with my cold. And I was like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, and that's, that's the feeling of a lot of aldermen, because, and their families too, because it was such broad
Because in
reaching
that one,
allegations.
it
said
tagged everybody,
everybody.
the entire board.
Yeah, she said that the bribery that goes on within the Board of Aldermen never ceases to amaze me, or something like that.
Okay,
it
so,
is. But just so we have some of the answers to what you're talking about. We have. This board, we're empowered to hold hearings, to subpoena people and to compel them to show up by giving them 10 days jail time, if you needed to do that. I don't think in any of these circumstances that you would ever have to do any of those things. We also have the power to look into these types of allegations, collect the data, and then report back out to the board the findings, right? And I think that's the direction the Alderman from the 23rd is looking to do, because there's so much out there, and it continues to be out there more and more and more and more and more, that I think it's incumbent on the board, not just because that it's out there like that, but because there was allegations again of a felony being committed within the board. So if the board turns a blind eye and says, well, yeah, whatever, I think that's a bad position for this board to be in. I think it's important that the board is proactive on that. I think it gives an opportunity to collect information and to pass that information forward, right? And then to report it out. In all honesty, it may not get there. I think between now and the time we start that first hearing, I think that the Alderman from 15th would have plenty of time to just, either say, yes, it happened and I'm glad to show up, and tell exactly, what official bribed who official. And I think that's an important piece to get. Or she could say, well, maybe I misspoke. And this was all just in an effort to move a bill. And then we would have some finality to this thing one way or the other. But families are being impacted by it now.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
And I guess just for clarity, Mr. O'Connell, the normal process is we don't get the subpoena power unless we pass this out. Right. Okay.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so,
You have the subpoena power without it.
okay. And so we don't have to send this back out to the Board of Aldermen?
Correct.
So, and again, I like, maybe the person making the allegations, without passing this at this point in time. Bring her in.
Yeah, hold on for that. Alderman, for the 23rd, would you be,
Oh, yeah.
would you be comfortable moving forward?
Yeah,
with that?
let's, whatever everybody's I'm willing to hold this and have her come in and, you know, all I'm looking to do is to show one way or the other, either this stuff happened or it didn't. If it did, we really need to be serious about it. If it didn't, and then at least we can move forward from there. And
Okay.
that ends
All right,
it. So
perfect.
I'm perfectly willing to not do anything, just to wait and see.
I second that.
All right, hold on a second. Oh, yeah. Hey,
For those of us who, you know, haven't been completely, you know, on top of this, because it's, I know it's kind of a moving target with social media and everything. Is there, I mean, I know some of this stuff, there's things said on social media and some things in writing. I mean, can somebody collect that
Yeah,
for
that-
us so
all
that
of
it can
that
be somewhat
information.
organized so that we actually know what was being
Absolutely.
said?
Absolutely. That's all being collected. So now, to wrap it up, any further discussion?
So do we have a motion here?
No, what we're gonna do, it sounds like the chairman and a couple other members, including myself, are comfortable with just holding this for now. And then we're going to, I'll send a letter out, from the committee, to ask all the person from the 15th to show up first part of next week for a hearing. Let's probably try to, maybe Monday, I think that'd be.
President's Day.
What?
Monday's President's Day.
Tuesday then?
How about Wednesday?
I
I mean, since we're already meeting on Wednesday.
I know,
be
I know,
consistent.
okay, what, the first part of the week, next week, to talk about, to discuss our allegations, and then we will determine where to move from there. And if she stands by that there were bribes being taken, then we need to dive into that. If she says I misspoke or whatever, I think we move from there.
I think we just give her the opportunity to come and put the alderperson from the 15th, the cards on the table, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
So will we have all of the information of what she's put out there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what he said
Okay,
before.
I
They're
just-
gonna get all that information.
Absolutely.
So I move we adjourn.
Second.
So that's what we're gonna do?
I have a question. And just for the attorney, since we're gonna be specifically talking to Megan, and if we're gonna have tapes or whatnot, is it, since it's a personnel question, is that a closed session? I just so everybody knows. So it's not, okay.
We,
So
yeah,
it's still an open meeting?
yeah,
Okay.
we still.
I was curious.
And even if we could fall under those guidelines, I would request from the Alderwoman of the 15th and all of these members, so that we keep an open process, not to close it, so that people can come and hear. Because I think everybody needs to hear it all at the same time, so we can get past it. So, that's it. I move that we adjourn this personnel.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?